Hi everyone, I am so excited about my rainbow petris. They all came out exactly like I had envisioned, and I wanted to share the process of how I made them. So I use promarine resin, and I really like the viscosity of it. It's not as viscous as arch resin that I had used earlier, and it's also, of course, less expensive. But it just makes it more economical to use. But I also just love the viscosity of the resin, and I have stopped using a torch. I used to, but now I just make sure that I have my resin out in the heat for a bit. So I just set it out in the sun for about 30 minutes before I start my resin projects while I set up everything else. And when I mix part A to part B, I make sure that I mix for a thorough 5 minutes instead of the 3 that they recommend. It just makes it easier to get the bubbles out later. I don't have to spend as much time getting the bubbles out. And you see me swirling around with a toothpick. What's happening here is that there are some bubbles that get settled at the bottom. So I tap the trays after I put the resin in. I use my heat gun to kind of pop those bubbles out. But then I also use this toothpick. And then I just go through the process of putting the inks in one color at a time. I wanted to do the rainbows because I had some requests for some custom rainbow bottle stoppers and also some custom rainbow necklaces. So I figured I'd give it a shot. I was very worried about all the colors mixing together and just making mud. And I'm so grateful that that didn't happen. I put the colors in the exact same order in each one, as you can see. So it was violet, indigo, blue, yellow, green. Is that the right order?
No.
My 4-year-old always has to correct me. So it's violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's the order I used. And then once the inks had just barely settled in, I put drops of white. And this is where the differences were. I thought I was going around in the same circle shape, but I probably dropped the white a little bit differently in each. And I think that's what made each one of these really distinct. The white is what pushes it's the blanco. It's what pushes the colored inks down. And that's what makes all these distinct patterns. So that process, the process itself was pretty fast. And then I put it outside, made sure they were covered. But what took longer, I think, in my mind was that I planned a lot for this to happen the way it's happened. And as you can see, these demolding, this demolding process, that each one did turn out to be distinctly its own being. They have the same colors, the colors were put in the same order, but they are different. And they're all rainbows, but they're all different rainbows. And that's what I really love about this process, is that no matter how much you plan, no matter how much you measure, no matter how skilled you think you are at making something exactly the same way as the other, there will still be differences. Sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle. So each one of these really came out really very, very different, despite being the same colors. And I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't create any brown petris. I was really, really worried that that's what would happen, because I'd never used so many colors with such concentration in each one. And I kind of went on a limb and decided, I mean, it's kind of silly to do that when you're making so many all at once, but it was also a leap of faith. I've made enough of these resin petris now to believe that if the vision in my mind doesn't come to fruition, something else will happen and it'll be equally good. Because you really can't go wrong with these inks, and with the resin, you almost always have an amazing design. This one was interesting. It felt like frosted glass to me. And I wiped it off thinking, am I having blurry vision or what? But there are 3 of them that came out really interesting looking and didn't have the kind of the threads and the blooms that the others did. So this was the process. If you have any questions about my process, about the materials used, just shoot me a message. I'm always happy to help. I did add glitter in the second set, which is what you see here. I was just experimenting again to see where the glitter lands, whether it gets dispersed throughout or whether it settles at the bottom. And for the most part, it did settle at the bottom. So that's what you see as the top. And I'll be spending the next couple of weeks letting these cure completely and also then converting them into bottle stoppers and necklaces. So thank you so much for watching, and shoot me any questions you have.